A woman who set out with a camera in hand to capture the world's beauty became a crime scene herself. Behind the ancient walls of Istanbul, hidden beneath a dirty old sheet, her body was found, breathless, silent. The question wasn't where she had gone. The question was she ever meant to return alive? Welcome back, everyone. Today we delve into a case that gripped international headlines and sent shockwaves across 2 continents. This is the story of Sarai Sierra, an American photographer whose passion for her craft led her to Istanbul, a journey from which she would never return. This isn't just a murder mystery, it's a story of a suffocating marriage, secret digital friendships, and an innocent passion that met a horrifying end. If you are fascinated by true crime, make sure to watch until the very end, because the climax of this case will leave you stunned. Let's get into it. Sarai Sierra, born Sarai Jimenez, came into the world on November 9, 1979, in New York. She grew up in a tight-knit family, positioned right in the middle between her older brother David and her younger sister Christina. Her parents, Dennis and Bethany Jimenez, had immigrated to America from Puerto Rico in 1973. Settling in Manhattan, they sought a fresh start, and this is where they raised their children. The Jimenez family wasn't just adjusting to immigrant life, they were deeply religious. Shortly after arriving in the U.S., they became deeply involved in a local Protestant evangelical community. In their household, faith wasn't just an identity, it dictated daily life. Attending church every Sunday, community service, and Sunday school for the kids were non-negotiable routines. But along with this religious foundation came strict rules. The boundaries were crystal clear. The daughters were discouraged from talking to boys, dating was out of the question, and a strict 9 p.m. curfew was enforced. Every friendship and interaction happened under the watchful eyes of her parents. Sarai's world revolved entirely around 3 places: home, school, and church. Yet Sarai was not the type of girl to silently accept confinement. While her younger sister Christina was quiet, traditional, and obedient, Sarai possessed a rebellious, fiery spirit. She was energetic, creative, and possessed an innate desire to break free from those confining walls. Strangely enough, she deeply respected her parents and never openly challenged their authority. She simply suffocated in silence. During her school years, Sarai initially wanted to go into teaching, specifically arts and culture. However, as time went on, her interest shifted toward psychology. This choice reflected her internal drive to understand human behavior and emotions, perhaps a subconscious attempt to process her own feelings of containment. It was during this period of her life that Sarai met a young man who would alter her trajectory forever. But to understand her future choices, one must understand that her upbringing had planted a powerful seed inside her, a desperate craving for freedom, a craving that would ultimately drive her final, fateful decisions. But the path to freedom was far from straightforward, as her next step led her straight into a marriage that turned out to be just another cage. During a church gathering when Sarai was just 18 years old, a young man named Sarai Sierra caught her eye. Stephen, 7 years her senior, took the initiative to strike up a conversation. Within their religious community, marrying young was entirely normal, and with her parents' blessing, their quick courtship soon turned into an engagement. Dennis and Bethany approved of Stephen. He was polite, honest, and respectful, ticking every box of what they envisioned for a son-in-law. But the reality was that Sarai wasn't madly in love with Stephen. Instead, she viewed marriage as an exit strategy, a way to escape her parents' strict household and finally live life on her own terms. It's worth noting that while she loved her parents and shared a good relationship with them, she craved independence, and marriage seemed to promise it. In February 1999, less than a year after meeting, 19-year-old Sarai married 26-year-old Stephen. Shortly after, the newlyweds relocated to Michigan, where Stephen's parents lived. This was Sarai's first real experience living outside of New York, and the change initially revitalized her. She threw herself into decorating their new home, meeting new people, and exploring new surroundings. However, Sarai soon became pregnant, first with a son and later a daughter. Her dreams of continuing college were put on hold as she stepped into the demanding role of full-time motherhood, which she embraced wholeheartedly. A few years later, the family moved again, this time to the scenic Silver Lake area of California. Stephen had secured a job there, but they quickly realized his income wasn't enough to sustain their lifestyle. Eventually, financial strain forced them back to New York, where they moved into a modest rented apartment near the Jimenez family. These were difficult, lean years. Sarai stayed home with the kids while Stephen worked odd jobs to make ends meet, often relying on loans. Things began to stabilize once the children reached school age, and Sarai landed a job at an advertising agency. Around the same time, Stephen secured a permanent job as a city bus driver. Life was finally finding its footing, but the emotional distance growing between them was becoming impossible to ignore. Just as their external life found stability, Sarai's old creative spark reignited, but this time it pointed her toward an entirely new path. With the children growing older and financial pressures easing, Sarai decided to revive her long-dormant dream of higher education. This time, she enrolled in a psychology program. For a while, things went smoothly, but the grueling hours of academic lectures soon drained her. She realized this wasn't her true calling. Sarai had always been a creative soul. She possessed an excellent eye for drawing and a natural ability to spot beauty in mundane things. This artistic instinct eventually drew her to photography. She joined a well-known local photography community in New York, and it didn't take long for her raw talent to shine. Sarai mastered framing and composition so quickly that even professional photographers began taking notice of her work. In early 2012, encouraged by her peers, Sarai created a social media page to showcase her photography. What started as a modest hobby quickly exploded. Thousands of people began following her account, flooding her posts with praise and admiration. Within months, Sarai became a rising digital star, her follower count skyrocketing daily. This sudden recognition was intoxicating. It gave her a profound sense of validation, convincing her that she could turn this passion into a real career. Alongside fellow enthusiasts, she began planning trips to capture historic and unique architecture, organizing small-scale group photo tours within the U.S. Each trip was more successful than the last, but soon a grander ambition took hold of her. She dreamed of traveling to a place where ancient history and breathtaking visuals collided. The city at the top of her list was Istanbul, a mesmerizing metropolis straddling 2 continents, its ancient walls steeped in centuries of secrets. But her decision to take this trip wasn't purely professional. Behind closed doors, her personal life was fracturing, and this journey was turning into an escape. From the outside, Sarai Sierra's life looked picture-perfect. 2 beautiful children, a stable household, and a booming creative career. But at home, the emotional foundation between Sarai and Stephen was silently crumbling. Those close to them began to sense the tension, even if no one spoke about it openly. During this time, Stephen's social media presence took a bizarre turn. He began posting cryptic, philosophical musings about marriage, love, and the necessity of mutual respect between spouses. In one post, he explicitly wrote that he would never cheat on his wife, even if his marriage was on the verge of collapsing. In another, he heavily implied that his wife was being unfaithful, only to delete the post a few hours later, ignoring the frantic questions left by friends in the comments. Stephen clearly felt unloved and unhappy, and he was using social media as an outlet for his frustration. Sarai was enduring her own silent torment, but unlike Stephen, she kept her pain private. She channeled her anxiety into her lens. The more distant her marriage became, the harder she threw herself into her photography. Her sudden fixation on visiting Istanbul wasn't just about taking pictures. It was a flight from her reality, a desperate need to distance herself from a home that felt like it was breaking apart. She wanted to stand on the other side of the world, away from the noise, and reevaluate her life. It is crucial to remember that Sarai had lived a life heavily dictated by boundaries and rules. Now that she was finally carving out her own identity and finding success, a fierce desire for self-determination had taken over. She wanted to do something entirely for herself, no matter how challenging it might be. And so the day arrived when Sarai finalized the plans for her grandest journey yet, a journey from which she would never return. Shortly before her departure, Sarai received disappointing news. Her best friend Magdalena, who was supposed to accompany her, had to back out due to work commitments. Though disheartened, Sarai refused to cancel. She had waited too long for this moment. Her family was deeply anxious about her traveling alone across the ocean to a foreign country she had never visited. To ease their minds, Sarai promised to call, text, and send photos every single day. To maximize her time away, Sarai expanded her itinerary to include stops in Germany and Austria, where she had booked a few commercial photography assignments. Her schedule was meticulously planned, mapped out practically hour by hour. On January 7, 2013, Sarai Sierra boarded a flight from New York to Istanbul. She carried a modest amount of cash, a smartphone, a tablet, an entry-level DSLR camera, and a few professional lenses. Upon landing in Istanbul, Sarai immediately called home to let her family know she had arrived safely and was heading to her pre-booked hotel. Traveling on a tight budget, she had chosen a hotel in an area that locals considered somewhat rough and less secure. After dropping her bags and changing her clothes, Sarai headed straight for the nearest metro station, eager to reach the city's historic core. For days, Sarai wandered the vibrant streets of Istanbul, capturing its historic essence through her lens. Every evening, she faithfully video-called her parents and husband, sharing her excitement and outlining her plans for the next day. She would process her photos and upload them to her growing social media accounts. To the world, she was just an ecstatic tourist living her dream. But beneath the smiles lay the same heavy questions she had left behind in New York. This was the freest Sarai had ever been. No curfews, no surveillance, no expectations. Just her camera, and an ancient city offering a new frame at every turn. But during this period of absolute freedom, Sarai was regularly meeting up with someone who would become the most pivotal and suspicious figure in this entire case. And this relationship would soon push her story into dangerous territory. As investigators later discovered, Sarai wasn't entirely alone in Istanbul. She was frequently accompanied by a young man she knew online by the handle Talon. Their digital interaction had begun on social media in mid-2012, and it was this online friend who had passionately convinced Sarai to visit Turkey. For months they exchanged messages, growing incredibly close. Sarai had come to trust him implicitly. In Istanbul, Sarai and this online friend met almost daily, exploring the city's major attractions together. Being a local, he knew the city inside out. He guided Sarai to unique, off-the-beaten-path locations that ordinary tourists rarely saw. After a week in Turkey, Sarai paused her time there to head to Europe for her pre-arranged commercial photo shoots. To cut down on travel expenses, Sarai utilized a clever strategy. She stayed with dedicated social media followers who had long admired her work and had offered her a place to stay. When she landed in Vienna, she was greeted by a young man who hosted her for 2 days. This Austrian follower was a photography enthusiast himself and a massive fan of her work. On the 3rd day, she traveled to Berlin, where another follower welcomed her and showed her around the city. With her European assignments wrapped up, Sarai returned to Istanbul for her final 2 days before her scheduled flight back to New York. Upon her return, her online friend met her at the transit point. They spent the day exploring and ended the night at a local bar. Past midnight, he dropped Sarai off at her hotel, where they said their goodbyes. The exact nature of this relationship whether it was purely platonic or something deeper, became a massive focal point for investigators. The online friend vehemently maintained that their bond was strictly a close friendship. However, the months of intense, private messages and the fact that he used a pseudonym online naturally raised red flags. Up until her final day, everything appeared completely normal. But then, the timeline suddenly went dark. January 21st, 2013, was meant to be Sarai's final day in Istanbul. That morning, she called her parents and husband to confirm her flight details and arrival time in New York. Her family was relieved and excited. This was the longest Sarai had ever been away from home, and her journey was finally coming to an end. Before heading to the airport, Sarai wanted to take one last stroll through the city to capture a few final images for her portfolio. In New York, her father, Dennis, arrived early at the airport to pick her up, as Stephen was stuck at work. Dennis waited anxiously as the flight landed and passengers began filing out of the terminal. But Sarai never emerged. Her phone went straight to voicemail, and every attempt to reach her failed. After waiting for hours in mounting panic, Dennis approached airline staff. The information they gave him left him paralyzed with fear. Sarai Sierra had never boarded the plane. Dennis immediately called Stephen, who began frantically searching for clues. Stephen, who had access to Sarai's digital accounts, contacted the hotel in Istanbul. The manager informed him that Sarai's luggage and personal belongings were still sitting untouched in her room. She had missed her checkout deadline and hadn't been seen at the hotel for 2 days. The news shattered the family. No one knew where Sarai was, and the sheer distance made them feel completely helpless. Sifting through her social media messages, Stephen uncovered the extensive chat history between Sarai and her online friend. Sensing something was wrong, Stephen reached out to him directly. The friend claimed he hadn't seen Sarai since the night before her scheduled departure, and noted that she had uncharacteristically failed to call him before heading to the airport. The Jimenez family immediately reported Sarai missing to the U.S. Embassy in Istanbul. Within 24 hours, a massive multi-agency search operation was launched. Refusing to wait idly by, Stephen and Sarai's brother David boarded a flight to Istanbul, clinging to the hope that she was still alive and just needed to be found. But as the investigation widened, the mystery only deepened, turning up more questions than answers. The investigation began by mapping out Sarai's social circle in Istanbul. Detectives intensively questioned both the hotel staff and her online contact. The hotel manager reiterated that he last saw Sarai when she walked out holding a small bag and her camera, expecting her to return to check out the following morning. When detectives turned their attention to the online friend, things became complicated. First, they discovered that his real name was Taryn. He had been using the fake name Tylen online, though he claimed it was just a regular internet handle. Given their months of intimate digital contact and the fact that she traveled to Turkey partly to see him, police heavily suspected a romantic angle or a crime of passion. However, Taryn cooperated fully. His alibi checked out completely, and digital forensics verified he had no involvement in her disappearance. He was cleared of suspicion. The next step was reconstructing Sarai's final steps using a combination of cell phone tower pings and Istanbul's extensive CCTV network. The footage showed her taking the metro to the historic Sultanahmet district. She was spotted near the confluence of the Bosphorus and the Golden Horn, and later navigating the dense crowds of the Eminönü market. Her final trace appeared on a camera near a subway station, showing her walking toward the ancient Sarayburnu fortress walls. After entering that blind spot, she vanished from the grid. Commanders ordered a foot-by-foot search of the isolated, overgrown areas surrounding the ancient Sarayburnu walls, while detectives canvassed locals, asking if anyone had seen a lone American woman carrying a camera. After hours of grueling searches through the ruins, the searchers made a grim discovery. Tucked away in a dark recess of the stone walls lay a body. hidden from view beneath a dirty, discarded sheet. Until this moment, the media had treated the case as a high-profile, missing person story. International news outlets had been covering it daily, but the discovery near the ancient walls shifted the investigation into a dark homicide case. When the forensic team secured the crime scene, the physical evidence began to tell a horrifying story. Forensic pathologists estimated that the body had been lying in the ruins for approximately 10 to 12 days. The victim was unclothed from the waist down, strongly indicating a sexual assault, a theory later confirmed by medical examiners. The autopsy revealed that Sarai's cause of death was severe blunt force trauma to the head, caused by a heavy, jagged object. She also suffered multiple defensive wounds, deep bruising, and several fractured ribs. The most critical piece of physical evidence was found beneath Sarai's fingernails. Forensic techs recovered foreign skin tissue and blood drops, proving she had fought back ferociously, scratching her attacker in her final moments. Strangely, while her backpack, smartphone, and camera were missing, her gold earrings, wedding ring, and wristwatch were left completely untouched on her body. This mixed profile deeply puzzled detectives. It didn't align with the behavior of a typical street thief. CCTV footage from a distant camera near the perimeter showed a grainy figure resembling Sarai taking photos, followed by a man approaching her. A brief struggle ensued before both figures dropped out of the camera's frame. At the time, the attacker's identity remained a mystery. As news of the murder broke, it turned into an international scandal. Wild media speculation ran rampant. Tabloids and commentators questioned why a married mother had traveled alone across the world. Rumors swirled about her trips to Austria and Germany, with critics questioning how she funded her travels. Because the Austrian man who hosted her in Vienna turned out to have a prior criminal record, a theory emerged that Sarai was being used as an unwitting drug mule. Extensive searches of her background quickly debunked this. Conspiracy theorists even floated the idea that she was involved in international espionage, an idea so absurd that law enforcement dismissed it immediately. The Turkish National Police, working in tandem with the FBI, faced immense pressure. They had DNA, but no match in their database. They needed a breakthrough, and fate delivered it in the most unexpected way. After weeks of painstaking investigative work and screening local transients, police finally identified their prime suspect, Zaya Tassali. In early, frantic international news reports, his name had been mistranslated and misreported as Talan Sali or Talan Sali, causing widespread confusion with Sarai's online friend. In reality, Zaya Tassali had absolutely no connection to Tehran or Sarai's online life. He was a homeless, unemployed drug addict who scraped together a living collecting scrap paper and plastic in the streets. Locals knew him by the street moniker Laz Zia. By the time police identified him, Tassali was gone. Immediately after the murder, he had begged his relatives for money and fled to the Hatay province, illegally crossing the border into war-torn Syria to evade capture. Detectives searched his last known shelter and collected his DNA. The profile matched the skin tissue found under Sarai's fingernails and the fluid left at the scene. The forensic match was irrefutable. Zaya Tassali, mistranslated as Talan Sali, was the lone killer. Furthermore, Sarai's phone had briefly pinged a tower near his regular scrap route shortly after she disappeared. With Tassali hiding in Syria, law enforcement feared he might never face justice. But a stroke of luck changed the course of the case. In March 2013, Tassali was detained by Turkish border guards while attempting to sneak back into Turkey. He had allegedly spent time with Syrian rebel factions, but, after being wounded in a skirmish, decided it was safer to return home. He was carrying military contraband, which triggered his immediate arrest. Border police quickly realized they had the international fugitive in custody and handed him over to homicide detectives. During interrogation, Zaya Tassali gave a chilling confession. He stated that he was high on inhalants when he spotted a lone foreign woman walking along the isolated path near the Sarai walls. He watched her take photos for a while. When he approached her, Sarai tried to ask for directions using gestures, but the language barrier made it impossible. Tasali's eyes locked onto her expensive iPhone and the heavy camera around her neck, and he decided to rob her. When Sarai turned to walk away, he stalked her into a secluded alcove. As the area grew dark and completely deserted, Sarai suddenly turned around. Tasali claimed he panicked, thinking she was trying to take a picture of his face to report him. He grabbed a heavy stone and struck her violently across the head. They wrestled to the ground, tumbling down a steep stone embankment, accounting for her fractured ribs and severe bruising. Tasali admitted to overpowering her unconscious body, sexually assaulting her, and then striking her again with a rock to ensure she would never speak. He stole her phone, camera, and bag, grabbed a discarded sheet he found nearby, and covered her body to hide it from the walking trail. Tasali admitted that while the international search was underway, he actually returned to the crime scene once, just to make sure the body hadn't been discovered. When he saw the news that her body had been found, he fled. He tried to sell the stolen items, but the camera was smashed from the fall, the iPhone was securely locked with a passcode, and he ended up throwing her belongings into the sea. Throughout his trial, Tasali showed a complete lack of remorse. The prosecution's case was airtight, anchored by the DNA evidence and the CCTV tracking. The court ordered a comprehensive psychiatric evaluation to determine if Tasali was fit to stand trial, given the detached, cold manner in which he described the murder. The medical experts concluded he was fully aware of his actions and criminally responsible. In the summer of 2014, the judges handed down their final verdict. Zaya Tasali was found guilty of aggravated murder, sexual assault, and robbery. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The Jimenez family expressed relief that justice had been served, but the conclusion of the trial could not undo the profound grief left in the wake of the tragedy. Following the completion of the forensic investigation, Sarai Sierra's body was flown back to New York, with a Turkish airline covering all transportation costs as a gesture of goodwill. She was laid to rest in accordance with her family's faith. To honor her memory, her parents launched a memorial website showcasing her extensive, unseen photography portfolio. The prints received overwhelming acclaim, and the proceeds from their sale were channeled into a fund dedicated to putting underprivileged children through college, turning a horrific tragedy into a legacy of hope. As for Sarai Sierra, he consistently rejected the media's narrative that their marriage was failing or that it had driven her to flee to Turkey. However, as time moved on, a surprising development unfolded. Stephen became close with a woman from their church community who had stepped in to help him care for the children and manage the household during his grief. Just 2 weeks before the first anniversary of Sarai's death, Stephen remarried. By the time Zaya Tasali was formally sentenced, Stephen had fully moved on, starting a new family. The tragic story of Sarai Sierra transcended news headlines, becoming the subject of numerous true crime documentaries, investigative TV specials, and criminal psychology studies. Her story remains a haunting, cautionary tale about the pursuit of independence and how quickly an innocent passion can intersect with pure malice in an unfamiliar corner of the world. Her journey teaches us a somber lesson. As beautiful as the world is, danger can lurk in the most historic places, especially when traveling alone in unfamiliar territories. Sarai's camera was her passport to freedom, but tragically, it was the very thing that caught the eye of a monster. Today, Sarai Sierra's name serves as a reminder to travelers worldwide to remain vigilant, to guard their safety fiercely, and to never forget how fragile life truly is. That brings us to the end of Sarai Sierra's heartbreaking story, a narrative that forces us to reflect on the heavy price that the pursuit of personal freedom can sometimes exact. If you found this investigative breakdown insightful, please hit the like button, share this video with fellow true crime fans, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the world's most compelling, real-life mysteries. Let me know your thoughts on this case in the comments below, and tell me which story you want us to cover next. Until next time, stay safe, stay vigilant, and take care of yourselves.